Yeah, greetings and salutations. Prophet Bryan here, otherwise known as Rasayam, Black Star Movements Association. Yeah, let us guide our destiny, conscious black strength and power. Yeah, big up to everybody. Thanks for joining me here on the Black Star Movements Association's channel here on the YouTube. Long time in the making. You know, Black Star Movement's always making moves. Three, four continents. We're traveling to, we're in the Americas. We're going through Europe, passing to Asia, and most definitely we're passing not by, but even stopping in Africa, the place to be, the place where gods and goddesses love to be. Yeah, man, just down here. I think it's about time. Just came on here with the live to let y'all know, say, full launch. A lot of things going on in the world. And yeah, we're going to take the time and address it. You don't know the Black Star Movement channel. It's all about black consciousness, positivity, reality within a black context, black African context. A little background if you're not familiar with the Black Star Movement Association. Our mission is basically for black redemption, black African redemption globally. But that starts with the headquarters for Black people, most populous place on earth where you have Black people residing, and no other than Mother Africa, Ikebulan, Ethiopia. The mission of redemption is a long-standing one. Predates my existence here, my birth. Born in Jamaica. Travel abroad to the Americas. Resided in Canada for a while. And from the early age, I became into my consciousness, awoke into the reality of my black self. And from then, I've been on the journey to basically study, show myself approved, black history, world history, uh, spiritual, cultural, that's within a black context, biblical, and awoke into the reality of the manifestation of Rastafari's imperial majesty. Give credence and thanks to the Honorable Marcus Mazea Garvey, who plays a large part in inspiring the Black Star Movement Association. And I see it for myself as a continuation of that mission of universal Negro improvement that is needed more now more than ever. And, such characters, the Honorable Leonard Howell, who was a forerunner in terms of even awakening to the reality of Rastafari's Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie being crowned in Ethiopia. Um, you know, Royal Ethiopian Emperor with lineage that stretched forth all the way back to King Solomon and Queen of Sheba, and that biblical chronology there of how the Ark and how the bloodline of the Israelites ended up in the Ethiopian highlands. You go check that out, or even check out my page with Rastafari. I did a little piece there on what is Rastafari. And I'm proud of my culture, I'm proud of my race. I love my people, even though at times, what we see on the TV, the media, how we're portrayed, and even some of the things, whether it's stereotype, we take on a lot of those stereotypes in our lives because the media is very influential, and we need more conscious and positive people, basically changing that narrative, you know, come into something more blessed and royal, more esteemed, more reflective of our ancient ancestry, which didn't just start with the transatlantic slavery, even though a large part of the Black Star Movement Association is basically standing and defending our identity for myself, first and foremost, as ADOTS, ADOTS, which basically stands for African Descendants of the Transatlantic Slave or Trade and Slavery, subsequent slavery. And while we're on one black African brothers and sisters, we still got to highlight our specific identity in the sense of who we are, because we're facing a lot of things in, out, and inside of Africa when it comes to basically uniting, identity crisis, and coming to terms with ourselves. I'm not really gonna go too much into too many specific topics because there's a whole bunch. You might have some on your mind, but as we go along, you're gonna get the chance to chime in in the future. In the future. But right now, I'm just basically just giving you a summary of basically Black Star Movements, who I am and what we stand for. So, Black Star Movements Association, um, the redemption of Black people, Rastafari, Pan African, and conscious is one of the main themes, which is needed more than ever. In terms of the redemption of Black people, we need, before anything else, an awakening, which is a conscious awakening, would lend to the revolution, which is a conscious revolution. A lot of things has been going on in the past, lending towards a revolution, but in a large part, it has been in the sense of just the ignorant civil upheaval, if you will. Basically, rebels without a cause, emotional responses, and basically just crying to the status quo, the man, on a sort of can't we get along basis. After all the atrocities, I don't really see we're asking for the right resolution in terms of a remedy to what we've been facing as Black people. So a conscious revolution is basically the awakening of the mind, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, recognizing our true self, and the need to centralize around Blackness and Africa with love. These are the three main things that is required for us in regards to the conscious revolution, which is love for each other, recognizing ourselves as Black people, and identifying with our common lineage, our common ancestry, which is Black African. We identify by seeing each other with the skin color or phenotype, uh, the most diversity of humanity just within Africa, whether it's blood type, features, whether it's straight nose, broad nose, big lips, thin lips, light, fair skin, all the way up to black, blue black, if you will. And that's all within the human family of Africa before we even spread out of Africa and take on different aspects, becoming different races, basically mutating. But our centralized melanite identity of who we are, the originals, or even as close to the originals as possible, holding to our phenotype of the curling of our hair and all these things. The world comes to know us as Black African, and they're sure to remind you and let you know who and what Black African is based on the treatment, because the pecking order or pyramid structure is still in play since those times of the 60s, 50s, 1800s and so forth. You could use the America as a staple in regards to example model of what we face here in the Western world, and it's basically uh, you're black, you're at the back; you're white, you're right; you're brown, you stick around. And while we fought for many causes, it created a broadened opening for many other colored people, if you will, affirmative action and various things to benefit and take advantage of what we fought for, which is okay. We're very kind people. We're all about the love, but as we always tend to put um, others sometimes in front of ourselves, and even when we try to assert ourselves, we get the short end of the stick. So in this time, we need to be more clear, more definitive in regards to our identity, what we stand for, based off where we're coming from, where we're going. Because the Black world and the Black cause is a specific cause. While we stand for human rights and justice for everybody everywhere, we're highlighting the Black cause and the need to highlight the Black cause above anybody else's needs, because we see the reality of what's happening to the Black world, and it's been long standing. So a conscious revolution is just waking up to the truth and the reality of who we are from past to current, and how we could take control of our own destiny and basically carve out a future for ourselves and unborn children and born children as well. So a conscious revolution is a must for Africa to be free. We see the imperialism, the neo-colonialism has arisen since independence, where they basically brought the faces of our own Black people who are dubious in their stance, greedy, corrupt, and they hold specific key posts basically, and relate back with the slave master or enemy, and basically leave an open door, open window for the enemy to come in and out, to have their hands in Africa's pockets, have their hands in our resources. Notwithstanding, we recognize the need to maintain relationships with other races based on the global economy and so forth. Best practices, we trade information, but Africa has long been providing help, strength, and aid in the forms of the natural resources, physical and cheap labor, and just our inventions, various things that ones is yet to even hear about, um, as well as ones that might have heard about, whether it's the stoplight, elevator, you name it, hundreds, thousands of things, some that have even been stolen, the patent based off us being black, countless injustices. So we're not going to dwell too much on that, but it's good to know. So in your spirit time, try and read up, gain some knowledge, watch some videos, watch some documentaries, and get to know your black history, a whole bunch of contributions within the past 2, 3, 400 years, much less 1,000, 2,000, a millennia ago. The time of the pyramids, the time of the great castles of Zimbabwe, um, you know, if you name it, you name it, from East to West Africa, and even now they're still digging and finding artifacts, various technological pieces of what the world was, the pre-diluvian world, before there was a large flooding as a result of the melting of glaciers, and a lot of old world things that were flooded and covered over by mud and soot. But yeah, a lot of things still remain. A couple feet down, a couple meters down, and the archaeologists dig in, miners drill in, and these things they find various things, whether it's skeletons, pottery, uh, you know, highly sophisticated things, and along the lines of mathematics, astrology, and various science that lends us to see that our people were sophisticated, and it's just to get to know the wealth of history. You might not get it all, but enough to have back our self-esteem of who we are as black people. Just as well, you have, let's see, the conscious revolution. Um, yeah, I touched on the ADOTS, which is ourselves, and the need that we're currently facing, conscious black people who have the desire to return home to Africa. I myself have returned to Africa, but it's still a struggle in terms of financial, economics, culture shock. Our African brothers and sisters in the sense of unity that they don't have amongst themselves, just like us in the West here, we don't have it amongst ourselves either. So myself, I see a specific need is required, um, you know, to carve out a more detailed, clear identity of who wants to and who doesn't want to. And, in regards to Rastafari, of who I am, Ras I am, Prophet Bryan, otherwise known as Ras I am. I put forth the notion of a census and consensus. And this is basically to get a numbering or understanding of who is who. You might not get all, but a rough example of this is what we're working with. A lot of people are there isolated, in their corners of the world, fighting it out, just surviving, having certain meditation, certain inspiration, and they're alone in their survival and their battle. And they need to know that there's like-minded people out here like them, conscious revolutionaries standing, living, representing for the cause, and it's all about the black world. So it's about having that clarity. And, going back to Africa by plane, whether you're taking the tourism there, you might witness that, uh, the zeal and passion that we'll go there with. Sometimes it's kind of overestimated based off the scenario, of what's happening there in Africa, where the need for the basic fundamentals of life, food, the clothes, the shelter, and that's basically on top of the people's mind more than anything. My experiences, you come with a specific culture of the consciousness, and it's not often well received because you have tribalism mentality in place, you have religion mentality in place, and these things are mental slavery that acts as a mental block. And within a biblical quotation, new wine can't go into an old vessel. And while we want to practice tolerance and love our black brothers and sisters, um, Africa is very diverse and we respect everyone. Um, we're not all the same. We're one in black people, but we're not all the same. But the fundamental things that we can relate on is being black and African, and that is more than enough that we could have a heart of love and safeguard this beautiful continent that is ours and only ours. Yeah. Many people come to Africa over the centuries, millennia, and come to settle. If you study the Kemetians, the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, there's been a long stance within trying to stop invaders, Hyksos, if you will, an ancient name for foreigners coming in, especially non-black foreigners coming in to conquer and take up place. And that's been happening for millennia since the rise of various different groups that we know today as races. And as a part of that, there's many black people who sold out and took to the side for their own selfish game of, taking a blind eye or just, seeing nothing wrong with Africa being invaded. And it wasn't based off of love or salvation or anything like that. It's about domination and power. If you have the most wealthiest, resource filled place in the world, and when you check the people, they're basically just loving and just want to eat and drink, and they're not really having an ambition to spread and go colonize like we would see the Europeans and the Arabs and these sort of people. And when we did thousands of years ago, millennia ago, other races was not there. So it was one of more the real adventurers and just traveling the land and just navigating the planet. But now we see invasion that is taking over places, mass genocide, the killing out of specific tribal people, native peoples. You have Australia as example with the native Australoid people of Australia. You have the Red Indians that's been in the Americas, even though we predate them. We recognize them as that's their homeland because Africa is our homeland. And though we might have many homelands around the world, Africa is our central home as black people and even as humanity. So we have to represent for our core strength. And, you know, it's about getting back to basics. We see the whole world, in my opinion, going to hell. And we want to change that. We want a love and a peace, a balance, a justice, a truth to reign on this earth. So, love can be in people's hearts and minds, especially when the black world has been catching hell for the past centuries. So, the ADOTS is basically recognizing our specific tribe, if you will, of black people or even nation. Out here in the West, some has gone home already, made their way back and Kufat back to Africa. And it's great, and more is coming, but we want to do it in a more organized fashion. Some of the things that I faced when I was in Africa, once again, the culture shock, the different type of foods, the different type of music, some good, some bad, in my opinion. The standard of living, as much as hell has been out here in the Western world. For me personally, the standard of living when it comes to roads, clean water, yeah, just things more being readily available, even the jobs, even though it's a slavery, but the means that could help yourself is more readily available in the Western world than Africa. But what Africa presents that's not really here is the ability to farm, ownership of urban land, versus jobs is more entrepreneurship, because Africa is yet to have its full industrial revolution. So it's land of the entrepreneurs, mangoes on trees, borehole waters, various things that are needed, and you have a vast young population that's in need of various things. So all these things lend to entrepreneurship, in the sense of providing for our people, and all the raw material there that just basically needs the entrepreneurial mind, some sweat, the right tools and equipment, and just creativeness and innovativeness, ingenuity, to come up with some products that is great in regards to quality and also quantity as well. Africa is a place where you could have the quality and also the quantity. A lot of the times you might have a company with the quality, but it's not sustainable. So things is very expensive. But Africa has a bulk of raw material and is of the highest quality. So if these things are developed, it's just a win-win situation. You have the environment, the heat, the air, and the water, and how these things could be used to our advantage. We also have the oil, but as a result of fossil fuel and the damage it causes to the environment, the fauna and the flora, more attention could be, highlighted in terms of the renewable energy, that we could use, and even be leaders in that fashion, because we have the sun in bulk, we have the mountain and the winds in bulk, various waterways, rivers, and lakes in bulk. Kudos to Ethiopian there, with the long-standing mission of fulfilling the completion of that dam. And it's going to bring a lot of power there to the eastern region that it could supply to neighboring countries as well as the rural areas in Ethiopia. So all across Africa is various developments, and more is to come, because it's a big population. It's about 1.3 or so billion, right now, the population of Africa, and climbing. Nigeria alone hosts roughly about 230 million people in terms of the population. Ethiopia in second place with about 120, 130. Then you have Egypt and other places like that. So the population is growing. And the average, age is like around 30 years old or so. So a lot of things is needed, all the right ingredients for a wealthy nation. And we have to stand on guard, because we have the capitalists that raped Africa throughout the colonization of Africa, and they're looking for second dibs. They're looking for second dibs. They're positioning themselves to come in and capitalize off of the rising of Africa, because we reached the peak. They've reached the peak in their nation where they're getting negative returns, and Africa has been propping them up. But within the rise in AI and technology, you only could go so far. So they're looking for outlets to distribute, outlets for developing nations that have needs, and Africa is in the need. So it's a great place to dump their products, dump their ideas, and basically influence Africa's growth. And we don't want that, because we see how they have handicapped the world, skewed the world. Their own nations are failing. So we don't want them to be the ones who carve and, you know, help influence Africa within certain senses, not morally, that's for sure. We have different values. Equipment wise, sure, we'll take some of the equipment, pick and choose best practices, what's good for the environment and what's good for the people. But some of their values, we refuse to hold that as Africans, which is a God and Goddess, man and woman kingdom, and we're all about that balance. Uh, the, the ADOTS, African descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, we play a vital role within coming into Africa and setting up shop, and that in itself requires work. That's one of the great works of the Black Star Movement Association. Once again, Africa's redemption, conscious revolution. but also to assist, and spearhead the ADOTS